This is the FA Cup. Forget about the league game. That is gone. Forget about Liverpool. Forget about that 0-0 draw. Forget about any other competition. This is the competition in focus. The FA Cup, giant killers are made. Everyone is priming for that giant killer. And as Arsenal fans, we know this long enough. You've been an Arsenal fan long enough, you know what this means. It's cup competition. It's excitement. It's pulsating. We go to Fratton Park where we've not been in a while. And we've got to do the business. This is our Arsenal journey in the 2025-2026 season. And this game is so important for Arsenal. And we're going to break it down. We're going to look at, Fratton Park. We're going to look at Portsmouth. We're going to look about, what they can bring to the table, what will cause Arsenal problems, and what decisions Mikel Arteta would need to make going into this game. So let's break it down as we always do. Arsenal versus Portsmouth preview FA Cup. Let's get into it. Okay, so before we get into tactics, anything, I just wanted to talk about, Portsmouth a little bit. Just talk about, that stadium, Fratton Park. It's a really close stadium. The energy is really old school English football. It's not a place that you can ease into game. You cannot just go there and kind of think, first couple of minutes we just kind of do what we want and we're just gonna ease ourselves. Just because of the way the stadium is, it's gonna be loud in there. It's gonna feel intense, and the first 10 minutes could decide the tie. It really could. It could decide the tone of that game and how that game is going to be played. Portsmouth are going to be up for it. Second ball, set pieces. The noise of the stadium is going to be loud. And Arsenal are walking into this, not after a 5-0 pummeling of any team. They're working in after a 0-0 game with probably a much changed side going into that game. So let's be honest, that game was widely criticized against Liverpool. I did say that. Check out my video and my reaction on that 0-0 game. And it's not exactly what you think, because sometimes when we watch these games, watch it with a lot of emotion. And then when you go back and then you watch it and then you start looking out for things, and then you kind of think, okay, maybe it's not as bad as it was. Don't get me wrong. It was frustrating. The emotions were valid. We were frustrated in that game, but I still think that there were things in the game that we just didn't get the final things together. And look, that's going to happen, over the course of the season. Nobody's going to be flawless. No one's going to be perfect, but we've got to learn from those and move forward. And listen, we were flat, but this is a game to respond. It is. It's all about the response. It's not about, what that game was. It's about how we respond. And Arsenal has been responding well after disappointing games and performances. So I think this is going to be that. Okay, so a little bit of history. I was just kind of looking at this game, a little bit of nostalgia, as well. So we don't play Portsmouth very often. They've not been in the Premier League for a very long time, and we've not met them in cup competitions, I think, since March 2020. When Arsenal went to Fratton Park and my boy Eddie Nketiah was still in Arsenal then. He scored a goal, and Socrates, remember that name? He scored a second goal as well. But across 71 competitive meetings, Portsmouth has won 14 and drawn 24, and Arsenal has won 33. So, but Arsenal haven't lost to Portsmouth since 1958. So it's a long time. Tomorrow is not the time for us to start that, because I'm recording this on Saturday before the game goes out. So hopefully I can get this out today as well. Now, 5 wins in the last 5 meetings. That's a perfect, record against Portsmouth. But, and this matters, history doesn't set expectation, right? It doesn't win tackles. It doesn't get on the pitch and do what we're supposed to do. So we still have to, go ahead and perform when we get into this game. But do you also remember, some Arsenal players that have crossed the line and gone from, Arsenal to Portsmouth? We've had some iconic, nights there, right? None bigger than that 2004 when Thierry Henry dismantled Portsmouth with a brace. I think Arsenal went out 5-1 winners in that FA Cup tie. And after that game, Henry swapped shirts with Lomano Loa Loa. I think I've said his name right. And then wore the Portsmouth shirt back out. And later said they were singing my name. I've never experienced that in my life. This was an away game and I was from the other team.
But one thing I would like to say that their fans have been outstanding. I never saw that in my whole life. They were,
and that's mad respect to the Fratton Park guys, to be able to put that amount of respect. And I guess with all the troubles that the club has had, going down as far to the lower leagues of the division and then trying to work their way back up, those crowds have seen incredible lows, incredible highs, as well. So I think they're going to be off for this game. I really do. Had a couple of players, that have kind of gone the other way. Kanu Wankwo, remember him? One of Arsenal's favorite players, certainly one of my favorite players. I still cannot forget that goal he scored against Chelsea. That was just from an impossible angle. Ridiculous. He went over to Portsmouth as well. Lassana Diarra, remember him as well? He was also an Arsenal player that went over to Portsmouth, although his zone was a little bit of a strange one, right? Because because he came into Arsenal and we thought, oh, he was gonna do great, and then it was anyway. Enough of that. Okay. Portsmouth currently right now are in the championship, and they were trashed by 5-0 when they played Bristol City in the last time out, and they are sitting 1 point above the relegation zones, and they've just won 6 league matches all season. Right. And the championship actually starts a little bit ahead of the Premier League. And I don't remember how many games they've played, but they've played more than 6. So this is a club that is fighting for survival. And that makes them dangerous. They're dangerous because they have nothing to lose. They really don't. And imagine what it would be to have an upset in this match. So this is a free swing for them. They will be like, hey, relax. All pressure is going to be on Arsenal. You just go, do what you can do and all of that. Now, when I was looking at this game and researching, and it's always a little bit tougher, because when you're trying to research teams that you don't play a lot, you don't watch them a lot, right? So I had to rely on a number of other, sources. So bear with me. But at least we can start with what we know, right? Where Arsenal is. We're top of the table. We've got a good XG right now, about 35.3. And XG against is 14.5. So we're doing well. It kind of tells us something in terms of where we are from an Arsenal perspective. Returning to a clean sheet is always a good thing. It's always a good base to kind of go into the next game with. So we don't concede quality chances. Listen, Liverpool didn't have shots on target. As much as that game felt like the way that it was, I think it was more about, an unbalanced expectation, because we kind of thought this was the one we're going to smash them, but that didn't happen. So I think that kind of mixed into everything. And, obviously Arsenal didn't play as well as they should. But we do create chances, which is one thing that we do. And I think the problem with, Liverpool was our conversion and incision was just missing. We just didn't bring it. We left it in the dressing room on the bus somewhere. We just didn't bring it into that game. Now, when you look at Portsmouth, we've already talked about it. Their league record: 6 wins, 7 draws, 11 losses, XG around 22, XGA close to 29, right? So what that means is that they concede better chances than they create, right? So that should do well for Arsenal, going into this game, not in an arrogant kind of way, but in a way of, listen, no matter the team that we put out there, we should be able to do this business. We are an elite opposition. It's not because of we just say that, the stats, actually back that up. But okay, let's look at some other things, right? About this game. There's some danger zones, for our set pieces. This is where underdogs, tend to live, right? Corners, free kicks, second phases, those sort of things, we've got to make sure that we continue to master them. That's one thing that Arsenal does very well. I want to see that continue, irrespective of who actually plays. And we'll come to the team and the decisions that Mikel Arteta would have to make going into this game. Danger zone again for Arsenal game state. If it's 0-0 at 60 minutes at Fratton Park, they're going to believe. I tell you that. They're going to believe. So Arsenal needs to be wary about going into this game and then just kind of thinking they've got all the time in the world. You've got to have that football, psychology, situational awareness is something that we talk about in NFL. And I love my NFL, as well. If you love NFL, check out my NFL channel Across the Gridiron. Some good content there. It's the playoff seasons now. It's getting very excited. But I digress. But if you let, a home team start to believe, momentum can shift. A tackle here, something gets the crowd all going, and all of a sudden you're trying to chase energy that you've lost because you've transferred to the other team. So Arsenal has got to be really, really careful about this. And there's always that thing about, when it comes to home grounds and referees, they kind of want to keep that excitement. So they probably let a few tackles, go. So Arsenal have got to be wary of that. And this is the third thing for me in terms of danger zone for Arsenal. It's patience, right? If Arsenal overplay, right, take too many touches on the ball, if shots don't come early, frustration is going to creep in, right? Arsenal fans, we tend to remember the very last performance, and that almost informs how we feel, going into games. So, I think that, we've got to treat this cup tie with all the seriousness and that it deserves, and I think Mikel Arteta will do just that. Okay, so what I said at the start of this podcast was it doesn't really matter the performance that we had against Liverpool. It's about how we respond. So how do Arsenal respond after that Liverpool game? And this is where we're going to learn something about this team. We're going to continually learn about Arsenal every time that they play on this road to the title, on this road to what could be the best Arsenal season yet. The first one is thing that we've got to learn and we've got to do is tempo. We've got to respond with better tempo, move the ball quicker, vertical earlier, get those running, those balls, across, bypassing the midfield as early and often as possible. We can't do that horseshoe of death, sort of thing where we pass from side to side with no penetration. We cannot do that. We've got to up the tempo. We've got the players to do that. We definitely need to do that. Don't fall into that false sense of security where a superior team will take a time when the goals come, when the goals come. No, we've got to attack this with urgency. We want to kill this cup tie as soon as possible. Second thing, box occupation. Listen, we've got to have bodies in the 6-yard box. When I watched that game against Liverpool again, and Adrian Clark did a very, very good, analysis on that, and go check out his channel on this. And I had that when I was watching the game the first time, in terms of all the criticism that Victor Gyökeres was getting. I just think the final delivery wasn't just there, right? We remember what Saka did, what Noni Madueke did, and one of them, and I was saying to someone that, even just bringing Jesus into this game was not going to change much, because if you say that Gyökeres is not in the box, Jesus is rarely in the box, and I think Adrian Clark did it much better than I could have done. Watch that video towards the end, and he will show you, when Noni Madueke made that run, the one that Timber chased the ball and passed over to him. He crossed that ball. Jesus was at the edge of the 6-yard box, and he was supposed to be the striker. So, I think that we've got to occupy the box a little bit more, and we've got to deliver better with our crosses. The balls that are going into the box have got to be better. And listen, shots from range, I think, are going to be difficult in this kind of game, because they're going to be compact. They're going to have lots of people in the middle. They're going to be throwing bodies at everything. So we've got to work that ball quicker, like I said. And then again, the third thing, emotional control. Guys, there's going to be noise in the stadium, right? We can't get focused about what the crowd are doing, because the crowd are doing what the crowd are doing, right? Can't be focused about that. Can't be focused about refereeing. We can't let refereeing battles, come into our picture, whatever. We can't let that, right? We can't let any chaos, this team, we want to play this game in a chaotic fashion. We can't let that. We just need to have authority as well. Listen, I know this is getting a little bit long. It's supposed to be a quick preview, but hang on, we're almost there. Okay, team selection, guys. I think Mikel Arteta has got some decisions that he's got to make going into this game. Now, there are a few notes. Ricardo Calafiori is the doubt after what Arteta called an awkward injury. I don't know why that's a code for just saying that he's out for a very long time, because he hasn't really said what he is, and he hasn't said what the time frame is. So I'm not expecting Ricardo Calafiori to come back in a while. Christian Mosquera still remains, out. And of course, Max Dorman is injured as well. Now, Hincapie left that game against Liverpool, but I suspect that he might be fine. But in any case, I don't want to see him in this game. I want to see Lewis Kelly, and he got a lot of stick when he came into that game. And I think it's when you play football, and I've certainly, done that, not at a professional level, but just playing, with semi-amateurs and and things like that. And sometimes when you play in that, left back position, because I used to do that left back position, and sometimes you just don't know how fast somebody is. And especially when you're a fast player, it's just a thing in your brain that you just think, oh, I'm just gonna be able to recover. So you judge your distances between you and that player. Sometimes you get it wrong. And in the game state with everything going on, sometimes it's hard to correct that very, very quickly, especially when you didn't start a game. So Lewis Kelly, I've got to give him some grace in that, but I expect him to come and play in this game, and I think he will do well as well. This should be a rotation game for Mikel Arteta. I know what I want to do, but I would expect Mikel Arteta will probably play Kepa, in goal. I'll probably see, Saliba and Gabriel, although I really don't want any of them, to play in this game. But I think that he probably might leave one of them out, and maybe it might be Saliba because he's played a lot of games while Gabriel has been recovering. So maybe Gabriel, comes into this game. There's not a lot to do right back. Now, Ben White, is available. Does he start this game? I would love to, but Ben White has just been a little bit, and I don't know whether they're concerned about him because they didn't bring him on in that game against Liverpool. So I think Ben White might start this game. So Ben White on the right, Lewis Kelly on the left, and it might be Gabriel and Norgard that might play in that defense. So even Capia cannot go. But I definitely want to see Norgard in this game. Then in the midfield, can we give Zubimendi a rest? Can we give Rice a rest in this game? Get Merino to come into this game, as well. And maybe you have no option but to go with Merino. If Norgard is going to sit at the back, you go with Merino, you go with Eze, you go with Waneri. Playing in that Odegaard position because Wanere deserves, to come into the game. And then I expect Noni Madueke to start on the right. I expect Martinelli to start on the left in this game. And then I expect Gabriel Jesus to come in and play in this game instead of Victor Gyökeres. Now, people could argue that you might want to play him, to get a little bit more confidence, but I think that Chelsea game coming up in midweek is probably the more important one. So Victor Gyökeres, I expect to play against Chelsea. Let Jesus get a run in this game as well. Now, respectfully, I think Portsmouth are going to try to start with very high energy, direct balls, early shots, relentless pressing in the first 15 minutes because they want territory. They want to help their crowd to get into the game, and they want one moment. Arsenal must deny them all of this. All right. Okay, so finally, my score prediction. Best case scenario, early Arsenal goal. Second before halftime, crowd silence. Arsenal runs out 3-0 winners. We could have some missed chances, let pressure, and just have a professional finish, at 0-2, Arsenal scoring 2 points, or we get a slow start, Portsmouth score first, and then Arsenal recover and win 2-1. Either way, I expect Arsenal to win this. So I'm going to go with a 3-0 victory, to Arsenal in this game. And look, it's the FA Cup. It's about the romance of the FA Cup. But for us, it's anything but romance. It's about professionalism. We go there, do the basics at an elite level. No injuries, no drama, guys, and no headlines. We don't want to be on the front pages of the BBC with the FA Cup shock, upset, and all of that. We just get to the fourth round draw. That's all it is. One step forward. This is the FA Cup, guys. Listen, that was it for Arsenal vs Portsmouth. I hope you really liked the content. If you did, hit that like button as well. Smash it if you want. Put in a comment. What do you think about this FA Cup? And more importantly, share this with as many Arsenal fans as possible. And hey, if you're watching this and you got into this point and you haven't hit that subscribe button, please hit the subscribe button. As well. And I'm relatively a new content creator. This is a new channel, relatively. I'm just building it, and all the support that you can provide would absolutely be beneficial. I do appreciate it as much as you continue to do that as well. And thank you, everyone, for continuing to watch, continue to subscribe. I appreciate all of you. Let's go, Arsenal. We can do it. One step at a time. FA Cup. Come on, you Gunners.